This is the entertainment session. And it was an entertainment masterclass, really. And I mean, really today, you're getting a master in a class of his own.
He's coming on after me.
Sohail Shah, who's the managing director of King of Sunshine, which is a company based up in Manchester. We've got a lot to get through because Sohail's had an amazing career, and actually there's a lot of insight actually which will be, I hope, very useful to you. The way we're going to do it is we've got, it's a bit like sort of desert island clips, I suppose, isn't it? We've got a few clips to show you from various productions that you've done over the years.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to ask some questions, but if you've got any questions after the clip, then I'll throw open to the audience and you can put your hand up, and we won't have time for loads, but I will pick people and you can ask your questions. So do think about them as the clips are going on. I suppose we should really start at the beginning, just say a little bit about you.
That's a big one, isn't it? A little bit about
you
your starting point, and then I'll
you don't have to do this. I'll do this. So basically, hey, if I've got this right, you started your TV career back in Planet Pop days.
Yeah. On Channel 4 on Sundays, there used to be a full block of television for teens that Hollyoaks started in called T4. So there was music programs and films and bits to camera that was shot at Channel 4. And Planet Pop was a weekly music show that was started out as a 10-minute thing. So there was an interview with someone that was releasing a song that week, and then a performance of a different song. And the quirk of the program being that pop videos would be released, and then we would film our own pop video with these people, whoever was available, which was usually Steps or Westlife.
And so you were a runner on that, were you?
Yeah, I was a runner on that, and then stayed at the company for a year, and then made it to researcher on that show, and then that led to
everything else.
That led to another thing there.
So I'm sure you're aware. So again, Sohail's CV is so long, we can't go through everything. But from Planet Pop, being a runner, you then did researching and producing and development, and then series producing, and then it goes from there.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, you're a commissioner.
Yeah,
at the BBC.
We've just done a 15-year jump then, but that's what happened.
Well, at the BBC in the entertainment team, and there you were responsible for shows, massive shows which are still on, like QI, The Apprentice, Eurovision,
and Graham Norton.
Yeah. So again, there's a big span in the middle there, and we'll go back and we'll go back over some of that, so you can get a good sense of how Sohail got from Planet Pop to Eurovision. And then, of course, about 4 years ago now, you set up your own company, King of Sunshine, up in Manchester.
Yeah, so I finished at the BBC in commissioning, and then I was kind of thinking, what do I do next? And you do that thing where you're going, well, I've been a commissioner now, so do I? Which sounds very grandiose, but what do I do next? And either do I become a commissioner somewhere else, look into that possibility, or do I do what I wanted to do, which was set up my own company. And my dad wasn't very well, so I went back to Manchester, and when I went back, I ended up staying in Manchester, and that kind of solidified my move home, which I was always going to do at some point. I just didn't realize when it was going to be. And then when I did stay home, I thought, right, okay, I'm going to set up the company, which I did. And then in 2019, and then 3 months after I set up, the world shut down with the pandemic.
Well, let's go back, because it is sort of full circle, because you're back in Manchester.
Yeah.
So going right back to the beginning, because a lot of people here are at the level of either academic or early doors into television or media. So how did it start for you? What made you get into TV in the first place?
So I like from birth, I've been an avid television watcher. That was always like my escape. I watched every kind of show, probably things that I shouldn't have been watching as well, but you just watch a lot of TV, and I always remembered shows that I liked. I was just like a big film and TV fan. I always have been. But I didn't know that would lead to a career in it. I just know that I liked it, and I was actually going to do journalism at university. That's what I'd planned to do, because I was good at English. So I thought, right, I'm going to do journalism, and then I ended up sort of falling into TV by actually appearing on a program. Yeah. I'm not going to say what it is, don't worry, it's horrendous. Well, it's not horrendous, but it's
I mean,
I wouldn't do it again.
was it mini pops or something, or what was it?
Well, we wouldn't be allowed to make mini pops now,
No,
would you?
exactly. Well,
But it was a kids show. It
Right.
was a kids show. Oh, go on, I'll tell you. So it's 30 years old now. It was a children's program, a console and video game show called Bad Influence,
Okay.
which is 30 years old this year.
And you were a contributor, were you?
I was a reviewer. I wasn't a contributor. I was a reviewer. Yeah, by accident. So I met the presenter, and we got talking. And long story short, I wrote them a letter, and then they said, "Do you want to come and look at the studio?" Which I did, because I'd never been to a TV studio, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's like amazing!" So I went and really enjoyed it. And when I was there, they showed me the set and the room where all the games machines and everything were. And at 15. I've given my age away there, haven't I? But I was 15. What more do you want? Playing games and games that hadn't been released as well. So I was like, oh my God, great. And I thought that was it. That was just a day trip to the studio, and that's what they were asking me to do. And I thought, wonderful. And then I went home, and they asked me to join the show basically as one of the reviewers, the on-screen reviewers. So I kind of did that thinking, oh yeah, cool. I've never wanted to be a presenter, and I've certainly never done it since, and I've got no wish to appear on camera ever again. But it was so I did that and ended up doing it for 3 years. So when I was doing that show, that's when I kind of thought, well, actually, I like journalism. I love how this television thing is going and how interesting it is. So maybe I'll do broadcast journalism rather than sort of written journalism. And that kind of drew me into the media studies side. And that's what I did at uni. And that's how I decided to go into TV. So when I was a student, I was still doing that show for 1 year in my first year, because it was, well, basically it got axed because they moved Ant and Dec against us, and everyone was watching them. So then we got booted off after that. So then it was fine by me because I'd kind of outgrown it a little bit. Mm-hmm. There's a big difference between being on TV at 15 and then being on TV on a kids show at 18. It's just kind of like, oh no, it's not me. But then when I was at uni, having had that experience,
you got the bug.
I got the bug, and I wrote to everybody just saying, I've got summer holidays, I've got Easter holidays.
So you were, during your academic life, you were also kind of, I'm assuming it was Granada, you try and get some work experience there, or how did you make that first, well, the next break really into TV production?
I kind of did it a little bit ahead of time. By about a year and a bit, because back then the television, the ITV system was very different. We had the region system, so everybody you've got regional news now, so wherever you are, your news is different at the end of the main news at 9 or 10. But back then there were actual big chunks of regional programming as well, like 6:30, 10:30 and all that. And also the national stuff. So different people made shows for national TV and regional. And I was very lucky because I sit in the Northwest. So I was part of Granada Land, as I still call it Granada Land. And they do Corrie. They used to do Stars in Their Eyes, Love Me Do, Krypton Factor, all like big shows and dramas as well. And it's not far from where I live at all. It's only like 10 minutes away from my house. So knowing that I would be going home for Christmas holidays, summer holidays and everything from uni, I just, it's easier now because you can use the internet, but back then you had to go to the library and find out all these people were like reading and stuff. So I just wrote a lot of letters basically, and before email came along, and just said, I'm on holiday. Have you got any work placements? I'd love to come in. And I did that for every company that I could find in Manchester. And it was Granada that I got a response from. And I ended up working there for a summer at Granada Satellite, which doesn't exist anymore, but they came up with some stations. There was one that was full of dramas and one called Granada Men and Motors, which was the cheap satellite version of TFI Friday, which was like the big show at the time. So I thought, well, yeah, that'll do me.
On that one.
Yeah, there you go. Then there you go. Yeah, you got the real version. I got the cheapo version. So I ended up working there, and then off the back of that, they asked me to come back.
So was it so you're in your academic, everyone's saying, I'm assuming family and other peers are saying, you've got to carry on doing this. Were you tempted to drop academia and stay with production?
Weirdly, absolutely not. And not that I think that it's right or wrong, but what I would say is exactly halfway through my degree, because it was Easter of the second year, so exactly halfway through, I'd done several times of going back and working at Granada, and they actually offered me a researcher's job, So I thought about it, but actually didn't really think about it that much. I just thought, do you know what? I'm really glad that they've offered me a job. It shows that they think that I'm all right. But if they're offering me a job now, then they'll probably offer me one when I've graduated. And actually, I want the full university experience, because what I would say is, if you've not gone to uni, I don't think that's an issue at all. I really don't. What I would say is, if you are at uni and you're sort of in there and you're doing it, stick with it, because you've started it. And then if you know what you're going to do, at least when you've graduated, you've got your degree. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, you'll always have that degree. Not to say that you need one, but if you started it, finish it off, because the work is always going to be there. And, well, we know, don't we? When you start working, you don't stop till retirement. So you might as well give yourself a bit of a chance of doing other things.
I mean, probably we'll move on to show you a clip in it, but I think there's something there, if anything to extract from that, is that actually you can do both, and actually you should be knocking on doors. And the only way you're ever going to get opportunities is if you make them for yourself. And that seems to be
absolutely
what you were saying then. And it's very true now as well.
I think it's even truer now, wouldn't you say? It's kind of, because there are, I mean, like an event like this, for example, there wasn't anything like this when I was starting out. This would have been amazing to go to.
This was all fields.
This was all fields. And, we were all a lot happier. And, there actually was a functioning NHS, political. It's kind of like things like this would have been really helpful to me to know what to do next. But yeah, as you say, those opportunities, they're there for the taking. But if you can make them for yourself, or sort of get in there to get them, then it kind of puts you one step above other people that might just be thinking that things are going to come their way.
Thank you. Well, we're going to kind of come back up to date in a way, because your first clip's from Agatha and Poirot, which is a recent production.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a look at it, and then we can talk about it. Let's have a look at the clip.
There's nothing more British than Agatha Christie. Since the publication of her first book 100 years ago, she's been delighting us with fiendishly clever murder mysteries set in the charming villages and grand homes of our nation. Yet it took someone quite un-British to solve the crimes in her stories. Hercule Poirot, a Belgian detective with a brain like no other. Agatha launched him into the world a century ago, and they've been partners in crime ever since. Like millions of others, I adore them both, but Agatha Christie, just like Poirot, didn't give much away, and both seem to be, well, mysterious cases. So now I want to turn the investigation back onto them.
Agatha Christie is the queen of crime.
This master of storytelling.
She is on it every time, every page, every book.
And Hercule Poirot was always by her side, on page and on screen.
Hercule Poirot is a private detective.
Hercule Poirot is irresistible. He has star quality.
He has this extraordinary brain.
Always I am right. It is so invariable it startles me.
But how did they conquer the world together? With the help of some famous faces...
Loosen your belts. It's going to get messy.
A host of experts.
She describes cleaning them with a bit of dental equipment and her face cream.
Weapons, wounds, trace evidence, it's all there.
Access to her family and their private archives.
I think she will always be here, and while she's always here, Poirot will be here.
And the locations that shaped Agatha's work.
This was nicknamed the best hotel west of the Ritz.
This is the story of the greatest crime duo ever.
I think Agatha Christie and Poirot will be forever.
No one else has come close. They just haven't.
Well, I mean, the reason I'm clapping is because it's so hard to get anything away now. And again, just looking at that, you got the great and the good on that show, and you managed to get it away. Yeah. What's interesting for me, and just in the interest of time, is that you started in Planet Pop, and that's quite a factual show. So how did that happen? How did that come around, that one?
So I think that's a really good point, actually, because I think like I said, I watch all kinds of television. I always have. And I think that kind of is across the board. I think we all watch loads of different types of things. but it can be quite easy to be pigeonholed in the industry that, oh, you know, Sohail, you do quiz shows, or you do music shows, or you do this, or you do that. And I was always and it's annoying for some people, but I mean, yeah, that's their problem, not mine. But if I did a show, I would do it to the best of my ability, hopefully enjoy it. And then I would never go back and do a second series of it. Until I became a commissioner, I'd never done a second series of anything, because I thought, I've done that show, I've learned what I need to learn, I've enjoyed it, hopefully, and I can use those skills and take that skill set to another program and another type of program. And that way my career will hopefully be varied and spread out. So that's what I did. And because of that, and because of the fact that I consume lots of different kinds of shows, when I'm coming up with ideas and I'm writing them, they're all very, well, I'm not going to say disparate because it makes it sound like I don't know what I'm on about, but they're all different at least. So that, for example, Agatha and Poirot came about from a conversation that we had with Agatha Christie Limited, who we spoke to on a previous show when we were doing a show about detectives, because I love detective shows. And we did a countdown show, Britain's Favourite Detective, which is exactly what it sounds like. That's what it is.
What happened in that?
Exactly. Yeah. People voting on who they like. And that was great. So we did that. And within that, obviously, Poirot and Miss Marple were in there. And we were talking to them about using clips and you know, interviews and stuff like that. And it was just during that research that our archivist, Camilla, sort of when she was doing the research said, oh, did you know that next year it's the 100th anniversary of the first Hercule Poirot book? And she just found that out from sort of, you know, doing the stuff. And I went, oh, that's interesting. So then I approached the Agatha Christie estate and sort of said, well, how about we do a show to celebrate that, but we don't do like a trad, oh, it's a 100-year anniversary. Even though it is, but we tell the story of Agatha herself in tandem with the evolution of Hercule Poirot. So it's kind of like two stories at the same time, because one definitely fed into the other. And by doing that, we can show all the different facets of what it is. As a reader and as a viewer of stuff, I liked that idea. And I mean, just because I like it doesn't mean it's going to get commissioned, but thankfully it did. And that's how we got to that. And I think factual entertainment programming and entertainment programming, well, I mean, you know, the lines are very blurred now, and they kind of seep into each other. I think when people like the thing there, it's sort of if you read that, you'd kind of go, oh, he does kind of jazz hands shows, which I do. But I do lots of other things as well.
Well, it's all kind of unscripted now as the banner, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. Although that is a very nice little name thing. I might put that on the door. It looks good.
I mean, the other interesting thing I think about a lot of the shows that you're certainly making now are they kind of come at a different angle. And I just want to, again, just with the audience that we've got, you've done development and production in your time. And
always.
Do you think that is a benefit? I mean, do you think that's reflected in the sort of shows you make and the way you manage to kind of look at things in a slightly different way? Would you recommend it to people?
I absolutely would recommend it. I don't think it's a prerequisite, but just because I did it and I kind of think it works, and I can kind of see the benefit of it, because and sort of basic level, when you've been working on a show as researcher, AP, whatever you're doing, and you are absolutely wrecked at the end of it, because let's be honest, everybody is at the end of a series. It's nice to go into development for a bit where you go, oh, I don't have to traipse up and down the country for however long. That was my take on it to start with. But then, because as we were sort of saying earlier, I don't really like walking anywhere. I don't know why. I've got a real aversion to walking anywhere.
You made it up onto the stage.
Yeah, just about. I almost tripped though if you saw me come up. So I think in my opinion, the best development people have got an element of production experience, because they have that sense of, well, we filmed that and we know how viable that is, and you can feed that directly back into your development to make it more realistic and more of an achievable proposal when you put it together. And I think the best production people have got an element of development in there as well, because they know how it was supposed to look, and then they hopefully realize that for you or for themselves if they're the ones that have come up with the idea. So I think if you can do both, it's absolutely brilliant. And actually, I think it enriches your skill set, and it certainly gives you a more rounded career, and probably a longer one, if I'm honest, because I think there's, without sounding like an old fart, it's kind of, it can be burnout, can't it? And you kind of go, oh, I want a couple of months off. Whereas if you can kind of do both and negotiate your way through into production and development, it's so much fun. It's so good. Yeah, and to know that you're part of it as well, it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I always think there's very good producers, there's very good development people, but the producers that can develop or the developers that can produce are gold dust.
They really are.
You will always shine in this industry if you can do that.
Yeah, I've got two of them locked in a cupboard in my office.
Does anyone have any questions before we move on? Really related to either the clip we've just seen or anything to do with the different genres or development and production? Okay, gentleman in the middle there.
Hello.
Hiya.
I would like to ask about the future. What do you think about the artificial intelligence, and do you think it's going to cause any problems in terms of finding new jobs, or is going to open new opportunities?
It hasn't really come our way, but I think what's going to change in the future is probably there's going to be more technological aspects to how a program's going to look, like virtual sets and not needing as many like presenters. I mean, you might have a artificial presenter, but I think that might be a quirk of the actual program itself. That'll be a selling point. It won't be a prerequisite. But I think definitely moving forward to cut down on bigger budgets, there will be virtual sets so that you can literally seamlessly move from one location to another. So I think that's definitely coming. And with backgrounds as well, like, you know, they've used it on all those big Disney shows, like they've got volumes where the actors are there, but they're against a background, but you can't really tell. And I think that will inevitably go into non-scripted programming in the future, definitely.
Thank you. One more, and then we've got to move on.
Hi.
Hiya.
What's your advice on those who are trying to open up a production house, and what kind of capital are we looking at?
Do you know? Can we take that one at the end, because I want to kind of finish in sort of everyone's next steps and futures rather than get there now. Is that okay? So we'll come back to you.
We will answer that though, definitely.
Noted. Okay, well, let's have a look at your second clip. Now, this is a different phase in your career when you were a commissioning editor at the BBC. And it's a clip from The Apprentice, You're Fired. So let's just have a look at it, and then I'll ask you a couple of questions after. So let's have a look at the clip.
Brett, well, you might have been criticised during that episode for your pitching, but I think that's because the customers weren't really speaking your language. Now, we managed to get hold of a Brett to English dictionary, right? And it's been quite helpful. Have a look at this.
I haven't got an experience in as much as I'm a fully qualified, certified catering assistant.
I'm not necessarily completely 100% French orientated.
Lord Sugar, I can honestly tell you that I genuinely, categorically did not stipulate with any other specification than that recipe and the way it was meant to be put together. It's based on potentially simple formulas which already exist. The light reacts to the sensory aspects of all cats.
See, once you get used to it, it actually gets simpler. But there was one piece that we found, and we just could not translate it. We sent it off to several specialists, but we had no luck. Maybe you can help us out with it.
I wouldn't necessarily like to stereotype the fact that everyone's within the right place that they should be. I like to think that sometimes you can take a generic form of audience and try and cater for that, but if we had an element of maybe the females being within the team, they could give an outsider's view looking in, which could have proved to have been quite, you know, sort of beneficial for us, really.
See, Brett, I have watched that 8 times. I still do not know. What were you talking about?
That is just utter waffle.
It's funny because, you know, occasionally you say exactly what you mean.
I can shit you not. Karen was there and she absolutely got her ass in her hands. Don't look at the camera, you helmet. Oh, mate! What that shit? That's fucking beetroot as well, that's going to stain. To be honest with you, Lord Sugar, I'll tear people a new arsehole as much as the next person.
Well, you know what, to be fair...
I don't mix my words, do I?
To be fair, if they eat your snacks, they're going to need a new arsehole, aren't they?
So, that is a great clip. Why that particular clip? Why did you want to show that?
Just because it's kind of... That was the first year of the refreshed series of You're Fired. I think Dara had done it for, well, basically since it had started and he'd left. So we kind of mixed up the show, like new set, new host with Jack, and we wanted to do things differently. So we started bringing in more elements of VT and having a bit more fun with the fired candidate, and also that particular clip because it did really well online. And when I joined the BBC, I was very much aware because everyone was a lot older than me. I realised people consume things in different ways, and that was ultimately the line of traffic. It was always going to be that way. That more people were going to watch television on a TV less, and watch programs more on a phone or a tablet or however they consume their content. So you might not watch a full episode of something, not necessarily that, but that lends itself to being clipped like that clip shows very, very well, because you kind of get a sense of it, and that would then drive more people to maybe seeing a clip like that and then going, oh, actually, I want to watch the whole show. And it worked, and it did. So then You're Fired kind of, it got refreshed and then it got reinvigorated and it took off again, yeah.
So that's interesting. You crossed over to, in production, we say the dark side, which is commissioning.
Yeah,
you crossed over to the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
What do you think, in the time that you were doing that, and again, with particular relevance to now and everybody here thinking, well, I've got a great idea or I want to get into TV. What do you think's changed the most in terms of what commissioners are looking for in content?
Oh God, if I knew that, I'd be in work all the time. We'd have shows in production all the time. But I think the main thing is, I think demographics have changed, and they want to. Well, in some ways they've changed. In other ways they haven't changed at all, because the holy grail of a program is that you come up with an idea that every single member of the family can watch. Ideally, they all watch it together. But you know. Everyone here, I'm sure you don't all sit. Well, some people might sit with the family and watch it, but people are busy, they've got things to do, and you'll watch it in different ways. What they're looking for is shows that can be consumed either in bulk, so bingeable box sets, or an idea that's so kind of appealing, a non-scripted idea or like a format that you'll watch the first one and then you will absolutely just like hammer your way through the next 10. So I think a good idea is a good idea, but it's how many of those episodes or however many series they'll want from you, and how many they can drop as a box set or make as appointment to view. And we were just talking before about The Traitors, which I think is like one of the best new shows I've seen in years. Everybody I thought it was amazing. And their strategy was quite interesting, because then they ran it. It doesn't sound like it's brain surgery, but even now I'm going, oh my God, that was so cool, when really it's not. They put it on at 9:00 for 3 days a week for 4 weeks. So the whole series was done in a month, which is great. But I think the timing of it after a load of sport, I think worked really well in the run up to, was it after or before Christmas? Can't remember.
It was before.
Before,
I think, yeah.
God, it's almost February anyway, isn't it? Yeah, so that kind of worked. But then also, it still had that element of water cooler that everyone was talking about, even though, everyone stays at home and doesn't really have those water cooler moments anymore. But when you're chatting, however you chat, whether it's online or whatever, but everyone was talking about it, and that's the big thing. Twitter traffic can make or break a show for you, I think.
So having insight both sides of the fence, then what do you think makes a good pitch? I don't necessarily mean in terms of content, but what do you think? What were you always looking for, and now what do you always try and do when you pitch?
I think when you're pitching, you need to have a very clear proposition. So you need to be able to say what the program is in like a line or two, and then immediately follow up with why you think it should be on and who's going to be watching it. Because those are the three things that a commissioner is going to want to know straight off the bat. Who is this for? What's it about? And do you think it's going to be big or small or medium, and how much money is involved? And actually also another element of, which might be a bit further down the line, but if there's a talent attached to it, that kind of makes them go like that. If you name for something, that helps.
We'll come on to talk about talent in a minute. But before we do, does anyone have any questions they want to ask about pitching or what it's like to be a commissioner, or the lady with the striped jumper?
Yeah, so
Hiya.
I guess my question is regarding commissioning. How, as like knowing very little or limited knowledge on that topic, how does commissioning, I suppose, does it impact creativity when, you, like, say you come from production or development and then you move into that, like, as you call it, the dark side? Does it impact creativity at all when you're hearing these pitches?
I love your accent, by the way. It's amazing. I don't think it impacts creativity. I think in an ideal world, it kind of kickstarts the creative process, because if you're going to meet with a commissioner that you might not have a relationship with, and you don't really have that rapport where you can just kind of go, well, what you're looking for and let us know, then their brief is what you're going to be working to, and they do briefings. But I think when a commissioner can kind of have more of an impact is when a good commissioner will work with you when you're doing the idea, and then when it goes into production, fingers crossed, I would say, well, I'd like to think I was like this. I would be hands-off enough because I trusted the company to make the program, and I sort of know what's coming because that's what they've sold to me, and I would hope that's what it was going to be when it was made. And you just kind of have to keep that kind of almost like a parental distance going, are they all right? Are they all right? And then when it looks like it's going tits up, that's when you go in and go, right, okay, we need to do this. And that happens all the time. So yeah, I would hope that a commissioner would be helpful in the creative process rather than a hindrance. I have to say that publicly. There's lots more I will say, but like we can talk about that after.
Well, I think there's a good point to draw out of that. And again, it's something that I think to bear in mind now, just pulling the threads of what you said, is a lot of what gets made is about relationships that you've got with commissioners and conversations. They're conversations. You don't really go cap in hand. You go with a conversation and an idea.
Oh, don't you? Is that where I'm going wrong? Damn.
But I think what's very interesting is that when you go through if you choose to go into television, your career, you go up the ranks with people that one day you'll be running a company or at senior level, and the people you go and see as commissioners are your friends because you've just gone through productions with them. Yeah. So going back to earlier on when we're saying kind of do some development, knock on doors, do different productions, get experience, I would say that actually, drawing on what you've said, the more people you know, as you go up through your career, the more chance you have got of having a relationship with someone that's going to give you work.
Absolutely. Your network is going to make you, basically. And it's how you negotiate your way through that network. Like Matt says, it's a tricky one. You all come up together and everyone goes off and does different things. And some people go into one route, some people go into another. And then, you could be with a really good mate, and then you're the one trying to sell the idea, and then they're the commissioner. I mean, it happened to me. I mean, how it happened, still to this day, I couldn't tell you, but it's all quite funny. And you have to kind of utilize the people around you for good and for bad, and they'll be able to suggest staff for you for shows and everything like that. It's kind of, television is all about relationships and networking and who's connected to who and how long you've known these people and all that. It's such a large part of it. So I think the earlier you can sort of start building a network, I think the better. And things like the network, weirdly, at the Edinburgh Festival and all these, and RTS Futures, all these kind of things, the more you tap into those opportunities, I think the better, because you can try something. All right, if you don't feel like it's for you, that's fine. But if you get into a group or you do something like that and it works, it's really, really beneficial. I can't sort of stress that enough.
Thank you. Right, let's bring it right up to date now with a brand new show, which you must be very excited about because it's on now, isn't it?
Yeah, episode 3 tomorrow, 9:00. Plug.
Right. Well, it's John and Lucy's Odd Couples. It's on Channel 4. Yeah. Let's have a look, and then we'll ask some questions.
Before the break, you saw me doing Lucy's makeup, rather tastefully, I thought, during a couples retreat with our guests. So now Richard and Pasha have seen how a pro does it. It's time to see how you chaps got on. Welcome both.
Thank you. The theme is out on the town.
Would you say that one person looks much happier than the other person about what's about to happen? You can, of course, guide Rachel. You can tell him what to do, or you can trust his natural instincts.
Oh, listen, you're going to look amazing.
I mean, I've seen him polish a tap, so, you know.
And that's not a euphemism.
Has Richard ever done your makeup before?
My children have. They drew a third eye on my forehead.
It's amazing with such a low bar that you're still so nervous about Richard doing it. 10 minutes. OK. Crack on.
I'm going to go with a smoky eye look for you.
Well, it's foundation. That's the first thing, right?
Ooh,
you went straight for that and you knew what it was.
So first foundation, of course.
Those brushes.
No, we don't need brushes. We don't need brushes where we're going.
Not sun cream, it's not sun cream.
Yeah.
Make you glow even more and prepare you for what's coming next.
That sounds so much more different in your voice than mine. Brace yourself, you're not going to like the next bit. You look like you're made of clay. This has gone so badly so quickly.
That's the foundation.
That is the foundation. You're now ready to build the kitchen on it.
A little bit of contour here.
Contouring, great.
Don't cry.
Take some of it off her teeth, maybe.
We've got a tissue. I've got a sock. I've got a sock.
So why my face?
You're going to use a dirty sock. What is that, Richard, you've got there?
I don't know. It's got...
It's like watching a monkey do it.
Look at this.
Oh, I'm seeing it.
And like against the orange.
The good news is, to get this off, we've got a shower that's got barely any shit left on it.
That clashes a bit with the lipstick. That was the first mistake I've made. You've got blue, pink.
What goes well with tears? Right, 1 minute for some finishing touches.
Doesn't feel too bad. You might be better than me.
Yeah, it's good.
10 seconds to apply the second eyelash. Just somewhere near the eye would be an improvement on the last one. It's time for the spin and reveal.
Depend on this.
Oh! I mean, to be fair, I've had worse.
I feel like before we let you see what's happened, we should reveal that the next round you get to give Richard a facial tattoo.
I think you just need to prepare yourself as well, because it's quite shocking. So just give yourself a moment.
There you go.
Oh my God. I mean, it does look like a walk of shame kind of look.
Yeah.
I mean, would you take me out like this?
It's very odd. Katie was also asking to be taken out after this, but she was signalling a sniper. I mean, it's difficult to call, isn't it? A real quandary, that one.
It was when you was pumping it out. Like you were going to laugh her whole body in sun cream. And then it was all... Did you see the state of your dressing gown? Got it everywhere.
It was the most fun I have ever had in my life.
How would you have reacted had Pasha just gone at it?
He could have gone to town, he could have had some fun.
You think that's because you're a dancer as well? You're maybe more in touch with women?
I had my share of experiences, but I think it's just, she's so beautiful. I wouldn't think of damaging this canvas.
Why don't you say that to me?
Because you do that. You do that. Why are you nice? Piece of shit.
So for me, that brings together, like, that is the essence of, well, a lot of the productions you've done, and you, and what I assume King of Sunshine is all about, which is funny, entertainment, talent.
Hopefully, yeah. That's nice. Well, yeah, I'll use that as a tagline now. Yeah. So it's kind of, we have the relationship with John and Lucy because they've done a few series of Meet the Richardsons, and King of Sunshine now makes Meet the Richardsons for series 4 and 5. And when that was in production, this was sort of pitched. We did this about a year ago as a pitch, and we filmed it last year. Now it's going out, and it's kind of the culmination of what we want to do with a good talent that we've got a relationship with on a channel that wanted it. And hopefully it's entertaining. So it's kind of everything that I wanted the company to be. And hopefully it'll be a good calling card for more of this kind of thing for us to make.
And as it gets, as the landscape changes and broadens, and there's so many channels and everyone's trying to sort of punch through, and how important do you think talent is, in the sense that, do you think it's talent first, or do you think it's idea first still and plus talent?
I think this is going to sound like a really non-committal answer. I think it very much depends on the idea, but if the idea is talent dependent, then obviously the talent is intrinsic to it. So, I mean, you could do a travelogue, for example, which would be a very good travelogue. But if you then go, right, if you went to pitch an idea and said, we want to do a journey through, I don't know, like down the Nile or something, for example, And then they say, okay, who's the journey with? And you go, oh, we don't really know, but we could put this person on because you like them. That has its place, but it's really not going to engage anybody. But if, you said, just using John and Lucy, I mean, this isn't them because they don't really do this kind of thing. But if it was John and Lucy and John had some ancestor who had done a journey down the Nile and he was going to recreate it, there's more of a reason to do that. There's a story that sort of is already there that you can then tap into. But again, like Traitors, just using that as an example, that's a non-scripted idea that doesn't have any talent on it. Bar Claudia, the host, but she's sort of, well, I would argue that she's a big part of it, actually. She's really good. But it's the idea that sold it. This essentially TV mafia, who's the killer type thing. And it worked really well. And now to the point where everybody loved them so much, now they're trying to turn some of the contestants into hosts on other programs, that says everything. It's kind of, when you've got a hit on your hands, anybody that has anything to do with it who kind of stands out, they try and make a star out of for another vehicle. So if you liked Amanda, the traitor, she's probably going to end up hosting about 3 different programs over the next year.
So, going to open it up to the floor.
There's one over there.
If you've got any questions, either about talent or actually, we've got a question there, and then we will go back to the question we had earlier.
Hello. I suppose my question was, obviously, film and TV is a very network-based industry. You have to be likeable, you have to be personable, you have to get along with whoever you're working with. Obviously, you probably had many daunting meetings or conversations in your career that had to go well. And I suppose my question would be, how do you front confidence, or have you got any tips or tricks that can make it go well or come across well?
Well, that's a really, really good question, actually. And I'm doing it right now because this is not an easy thing for me to do at all. I've said this from day one. I'm really quite a shy person. I keep myself to myself, and I always kind of have, I've got mates and everything. I'm not like a total nerd, but honestly, you absolutely have to sort of, it's that thing, one foot in front of the other and style it out, basically. As simple as it sounds, it's kind of, the way I used to tell myself was, you've got one chance to make that first impression. And I think that's applicable in any industry. It's not just television, it's kind of a general thing. And I think because I was very quiet when I was younger, and I was quite shy. And that was always my thing. I was like, oh God, how am I going to do this? The more you do it, the easier it gets. And also, I think as well, the confidence thing is, if you just tell yourself you're going in for a meeting, they've wanted you, they've asked you in for that meeting. So just keep that in mind. If they're not there to trip you up, they're not looking for you to fail. They've asked you to come in because they want to talk about something, or they want to meet you. So that in itself is a positive. And if that's your starting point, then all you do is go in, be yourself. Well, I'm never completely myself because that's really boring. It's like this version of myself. And that's all you can do. And actually, that's all you should do as well, because if you try and pretend to be a certain way or act a certain way, they're going to have that impression of you. And actually, that might not be what they're looking for. And you then have to retain that kind of persona the whole time. And that just seems like a lot of hard work to me. Just be yourself, have confidence in what you are talking to them about, have confidence in how you're talking about it, and the rest of it will come. Believe me, it will. And it gets easier.
I think that's the key point. And it'll be interesting to get your thought from the commissioner side of the fence. But I think if you go in, it doesn't matter if you're a quiet person or a cerebral person. And it could be a documentary, it could be a quiz show. You have to believe in what you go. If you're passionate about what you go in with, that comes through in the room. And if you don't, and if you're second guessing, or it's back of a fag packet, you can tell, can't you, as a commissioner?
Straight away. That's why I made the point that just remember that they've asked you to come in, and that's a really good position to be in, because they're not looking to rip you apart. They're not looking to go, oh my God, that's rubbish. Everyone's got busy schedules, and they've asked you to come in because they see something in what you've sent them, or you might have had a chat and then they go, oh no, we'd like to meet you. So if you're you're really passionate about what you're talking about, and you can overthink things sometimes as well, I think. Because, if you like your idea, before you know it, you're talking about it, and those kind of nerves or that any kind of, oh, how am I doing? It's kind of dissipated because they'll engage with you and they'll ask you questions about, oh, what about that? What about that? And you know your idea better than anybody else, and you will absolutely be able to answer any kind of questions, and it becomes very much a two-way thing. So if you think of it going, no, I'm here because they want me here, that's a really good starting point, I would say. So don't worry about it too much.
And obviously, because everyone vapes now, you can't even do a fag packet, can you, anymore? So it's easier.
Yeah, smoking kills kids.
Any other question? In fact, no. Let's go back to that question about kind of next steps and ambition.
What was it again?
Do you mind just asking the question again?
Yeah. My question was based on what's your advice on those of us who would like to open up a production house, and what kind of capital are we looking at?
So two things. I think firstly, starting up a production company. So when you said production house, do you mean facilities, or do you mean a production company, like coming up with ideas? Yeah. Coming up with ideas. So starting up a production company it's a big thing to do. It's not for everybody. It's very, very stressful. It really isn't for everybody. And I always say that you need to do it at the right time. If I was just starting out in my career, I wouldn't be looking to start a production company. I would absolutely go and work for as many different places as I could, get all the experience of how other places work, how different programs are put together, and increase your skill set. And then maybe, in however many years, think about it. I think starting out with a production company, it's a bit of a misnomer as well, because we were talking about network earlier, you are only as good as your back catalogue. And when I say back catalogue, I mean you as a person, because, before I set up King of Sunshine, I was a commissioner. But before I was a commissioner, I was a jobbing exec, series producer. But by that point, at least, I could say, I've done this show, I've done this show, I've done this show, I've done this show. And not that I would, because it sounds really egotistical, but, if I needed to, I could have done that. And then that got me the commissioner job. And then I could even add that going, well, yeah, I've got my own company now, and I used to be a commissioner. So it's kind of, you do kind of need to look back a little bit to move forward, if that makes sense. So I wouldn't think about opening a company straight away, because you won't really get anywhere. And also getting meetings with commissioners and people, they're really busy. You need to have a pedigree to be able to get that. And loads of places go, we don't take unsolicited ideas. And that means unless you're a registered company or you're part of a big group, they won't even have you in for a meeting anyway. And capital wise, I mean, it's a big investment, but that's kind of much further down the line. Is that all right? Is that right?
Yeah. So we've literally run out of time, because there's loads to talk about.
I'm so sorry.
But I would say, and again, I'm just trying to extrapolate and extract from what you said, kind of basically it just starts now, doesn't it? And it's just the more doors you open and the more people you get to know, the more fruitful the TV career at the end of it.
Absolutely. And I wouldn't, things like this are great. And, you all kind of met here, and keep in touch with people that you meet in things like this, exchange numbers, and also don't wait. If you are in education, don't wait until you've graduated, I would say, to start contacting people about, I've now got my degree, I've got my qualification. Are you looking for anybody? Sort of, do it as you're going along, because not there's anything wrong with waiting until you graduated, but if you did, you would be one of however many tens of thousands of people who have graduated at the same time. So if you can get a head start on that, I think that would be quite helpful, and kind of monetarily as well, because it is a big thing. If you, depending on where you live, hopefully they've got production companies where you are, or news bureaus, or we're talking about the region system. Mine was Granada land. Whatever your region is where you live, knock them up as well. Not that sounds right. Hit them up. Sorry, knock them up. Cut that. Hit them up for any kind of work experience or placements, because even if it's not exactly the type of television you might want to do right now, it's a good in. And again, network wise, you might meet somebody there who can introduce you to somebody else, or you might meet someone who might go on elsewhere, and
they might have something for you. So anything you can do ahead of time, I think, will be beneficial, and it'll always hold you in good stead.
Well, thank you. Please join me to thank the King of Sunshine, Sohail Shah.
Thank you.